Josh Pate leaves the Vols off the top 10 list. He has Ohio State at, I'm sorry, who does he have at 10?
Josh
Oregon?
Pate has, at number 10, he has Oklahoma.
Oklahoma at 10. Okay, so he's got Oklahoma at 10. He's got Southern California at 9, Utah at 8, Penn State at 7, Notre Dame at 6, Clemson at 5, Ohio State at 4, Michigan at 3, Alabama at 2, Georgia at 1. Do we know for sure with Josh, is this just a list of what teams he thinks are the best in order or where he thinks they'll finish?
This is the state of the programs.
State, okay. All right.
And that's why I think this warrants, as much as we love Josh Pate, and I like him, this warrants some criticism.
Well, I think it warrants a lot of criticism. I mean, OU is still trying to find its way with a defensive coach that is not going to, and I told you this last year, and Oklahoma fans got all over me on the message board. They've got a defensive coach, and to run tempo and offense and to build your program around that with a defensive coach is nearly impossible. Ask Tim Banks, Tennessee's defensive coordinator. Southern California, sure. I don't have a problem with them being at 9. Utah, I think, is kind of a funny, interesting pick, but fine.
They won 2 straight Pac-12 titles.
For whatever that's worth. But that's fine. If it's stability, yeah, that's fine. Penn State in at 7. I mean, I guess, but there's just no scintillating sex appeal there. Notre Dame at 6.
See, I'm critical of that one.
Well, let me run through them all, and then we'll pick them apart one by one.
Okay.
Notre Dame at 6. Okay, again, though, I think they're limited. They just lost their offensive coordinator. They're limited in – Notre Dame is going to have a hard fall this year. They hired a players coach. It got them through last year, and they had a respectable year. They're going to have a hard fall this year. You heard it here first. Clemson at 5. Clemson will improve stability of the program. Yeah, I guess. I mean, but still, with stability of the program, I have to ask myself, they just hired Garrett Riley, who's Lincoln Riley's brother. Is Garrett Riley going to be a great coordinator or not? You would think so with what he's done previously, but I don't know that. At Clemson, I don't know if Dabo Swinney's going to look over his shoulder. I wouldn't think so. Ohio State at 4. I got that. But trust me, people are going to start to get frustrated with Ryan Day because of the way he handled the college football playoff and not calling a timeout. And he's supposed to be their golden child. It would be kind of like Tennessee hiring Philip Fulmer and Philip Fulmer not having success early. Well, it's very similar to Philip Fulmer not winning a championship until 98. People were frustrated that they got another Johnny Majors that would knock on the door, but wouldn't ultimately win a championship, which he did. So he was able to erase that. Michigan at 3, stable, sure. Alabama, and then Georgia at 1. All right, who would you have Tennessee above on this?
All right, let's go state of programs real quick.
This is state of programs, okay? Right?
Oklahoma is obvious. I'm with you. Oklahoma, you don't want to say they got another Jeremy Pruitt, but they might have gotten another Jeremy Pruitt. And my brother pointed this out to me last year, and I never thought about this, but Dave, you've covered coaching hires and things like that. Isn't it a red flag when someone is an elite coordinator and they're stuck in a coordinator role for 10 years and they never get an offer?
John Chavis?
Yes, there you go. Like they've had success and they never get, that means people know things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes. And I love Brent Venables. I mean, if something happened to Tim Banks and Brent Venables was fired by Oklahoma that same year, because he's going to get fired eventually, that's the first guy I would make a run at.
No, yeah, I agree. He would be a great defensive coordinator, and he has experience coaching against tempo. So I think Oklahoma's in big trouble long term. And when they join the SEC, it's only going to get worse.
Agreed. So I had them also ahead. I would have Tennessee also. I'll just throw mine out there. Oklahoma. I'm going to, and maybe Josh wasn't doing this, but I'm going to throw in a little bit of the, yes, you can actually compete for a college football playoff. So I don't think Penn State actually can. I don't think Notre Dame actually can. And this might not fit the parameters exactly of his list. So I would have Tennessee no worse than 7th. and maybe a little bit higher. If you're talking about stability of the program, and Caleb, give me your teams that you would have Tennessee ahead of. Don't you have to factor in that Tennessee has a coach that loves being at Tennessee, that and unless he's flat out lying, unless everybody's lying around him, but people I talk to behind closed doors, I mean, to me, that's really stable. If you had to tell me the over under, Josh has 2 years under his belt, but the over under is at 8.5. Are you taking the over under? I'd take the over. That's pretty stable.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's stable and in great shape. I'll listen with Penn State. I'm with you though. Like you look at Tennessee and you see here's a program that could get over the hump and get to the playoff, even though they just missed last year. Who looks at Penn State and says, you know what? They're going to get over the hump with Michigan and Ohio State, and they're going to get there. Nobody thinks that. And now, to be fair, they did win the Big Ten in 2016 when Michigan and Ohio State were both top 5 programs, but that was the flukiest Big Ten title I think ever. So I'm totally with you on Notre Dame. My big thing on Notre Dame, and I've insisted this for years. You want to hire a defensive players coach who runs like a defensive program that wins on toughness and everything like that. You better be the program that can get more talent than anybody else. Notre Dame's never getting more talent than anybody else. If you're a Notre Dame, you need a creative offensive mind.
Yeah, I agree. You can't win at Notre Dame for 2 reasons. You have no control over discipline, and it's tougher to get kids into school. You have recruiting limitations. You cannot win there. That's why Brian Kelly left.
Yeah,
That's why Lou Holtz. This is nothing new. This is almost 40 years old.
And Brian Kelly's a creative offensive mind. And by the way, I think we all know that Urban Meyer would have preferred to go to Notre Dame over Florida if he could have actually gotten them to loosen some of these standards that they had.
But you couldn't, and they never will.
Exactly. And this is why they're going to be stuck in perpetuity. Notre Dame's not a top 30 job to me anymore. I mean, honestly, I can think of 30 schools I'd rather coach at than Notre Dame right now, if you name them to me.
Yeah, I go split personality. Like I've got the little Notre Dame guy on one shoulder, the little leprechaun on the other shoulder. I've got reality. I'm like, Notre Dame, not a 30 job. That sounds crazy, but you're probably right.
Yeah, not a top 30 job. Mad respect for Dan Orlovsky. I think he does a great job on ESPN. He and Stephen A had this debate last year, and Dan Orlovsky's a college football guy, so it kind of bothered me that he said this. But maybe when you're stuck in college football so much, you get too wrapped up in tradition and you lose reality. He was like, Notre Dame's a better job. And Stephen A. Smith, who's not a college football guy, was like, LSU's a better job by a mile. And this was from Brian Kelly.
It's not close.
It's not close. LSU's a way better job. And so, yeah, I think Notre Dame, I don't think Notre Dame's a top 30 job, the state of the program without, and now that they don't have a creative offensive mind. And by the way, guys, I'm saying that Tennessee can't just hire a bland Kirby Smart, Nick Saban that wins with defense and running because they're never going to get the talent Georgia or LSU could get. They have to have a little bit of creativity in their offense. But boy, do they have that with Josh Heupel. And
I think LSU's probably a top 5, 6, 7 job.
I think LSU's a top 1 job. It's a top 1 job. There's LSU and then there's every other job.
I'm with you along the lines of thinking I wouldn't put it quite there, but I'm pretty close. It's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty hard not to win there with the amount of talent. So who would you have ahead, or who would you have Tennessee ahead of Pate's list? And it's brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. I had my visit yesterday. No glasses, no contacts, love and life. It is phenomenal. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Vision correction, whether it's cataracts or whether it's you need LASIK like I had, or you just need the regular old checkups. They can do that at their vision centers. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and they're local. How cool is that? Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, absolutely love them. So of that group, who would you have?
Okay,
Tennessee
so all right, so I would have. I think it's
give me one at a time, and I'm gonna call shenanigans if you got somebody. If you got Tennessee ahead of somebody they shouldn't be. So give me one at a time. We're going to play shenanigans on the program.
Okay, so the 3 that are very clear to me, and there's 3 that are clear cut. There's one that I'll listen that I think is 50-50. So I'll start with the spoiler, the 50-50. I think Penn State's the 50-50. I would put Tennessee, but I can listen to Penn State over Tennessee.
I got Tennessee over Penn State. Ain't close.
Okay. Wow. Wow. There you go.
No shenanigans there.
None. All right. So Oklahoma, not even a question for me. Tennessee's a better job. Tennessee's a better program than Oklahoma right now.
Closer now that they're in the SEC, but I agree with you. No shenanigans.
Okay.
This is a new bit, by the way. I'll get it produced. Shenanigans.
Tennessee is clear-cut a better program than Notre Dame. I think every school on here is a better program than Notre Dame.
No shenanigans. Agree.
All right. So you got to bear with
some shenanigans here.
Okay. Well, Dave, I'm going to give you some. You got to bear with me on this. And I hope
if you think Alabama or Georgia, I'm going all out shenanigans.
No. But I hope my wife is listening to me like from upstairs right now when I bring this up, because this is going to be hilarious. Because I got to give her a shout out. What I'm about to say, I get from her. Utah. Tennessee's a better program than Utah. And there's a couple of reasons. One, Utah winning the Pac-12, you agree, that's their max out. They're not going to the playoff and ever winning a national title.
They could slip into the playoff.
Maybe, but they're not going to win a national title.
Right, but no shenanigans. Yes.
Okay, here's the other crazy part with Utah. You ready for this? For all my Real Housewives fans on here, Utah's special teams coordinator and cornerbacks coach, who's been there for about 10 years, he's still coaching there. His wife, who was on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, just got sentenced to prison because she was committing fraud.
It's frowned upon.
I'm sorry?
It's frowned upon. Fraud.
Frowned upon. Jen Shaw is her name.
Okay.
And got to send a shout out to my wife on this. She tells me all the stories. She watches the Real Housewives. I watch college football. This is where our worlds collide. And so, but she's gotten sentenced. You don't think that's going to have an impact on him coaching the team this year? Just saying. Just saying.
You know, you would think with all the restrictions they have in Utah with the Mormon culture, which includes caffeine, which I'm highly addicted to, here you go, that fraud would be on the list.
You would think that being on a reality show would be on the morals list.
Cigarettes, caffeine, adultery, alcohol, but fraud's okay.
I mean, isn't that America? How many pastors get caught committing crimes all the time? You know,
well, I don't want to go down that road.
I'm just saying,
absolutely at all.
I mean, look, I covered firsthand the Southern Baptist Convention scandal a couple of years ago that they had been covering up for sex crimes for 30 years. But okay,
that sounds like great fun. No.
Yes. I mean, you know, basically whenever there's institutional religion that gets too big, stuff like that happens.
I think when any institution gets too big.
You're right, when any institution. I mean,
stuff like that happens. What is it? Nothing corrupts so absolute as absolute power.